in Singapore, Singtel Singapore Channel 15 and StarHub Channel 720. All right, guys, we do have a jam-packed morning show this Friday a.m., so let us start with our headlines. Caroline.
Thank you very much, Karina. Yes, we begin from the Middle East, where Israel has struck a school-turned-shelter run by the United Nations in Gaza City, killing 14 people and wounding dozens of others.
Israel's parliament passed a law early Thursday that would allow it to deport family members of Palestinian attackers, including the country's own citizens, to the war-ravaged Gaza Strip or other locations.
From Indonesia, the fate of the recently arrived Rohingya asylum seekers remains unclear even after officials took them to Banda Aceh yesterday.
As just previously mentioned by Archie, we are going to have a very special talk show today, folks. We're going to meet with someone that always liked to capture NBA stars right on the court. And also he was there in the Olympics 2024. So this is going to be a very big deal. If you love sports, then you better stay tuned right here on the C Morning Show. But again, we're going to circle back to one of our headlines where Palestinian rescue workers says Israel struck a school-turned-shelter run by the United Nations in Gaza City, killing 14 people and wounding dozens of others.
In recent months, Israel has conducted dozens of airstrikes on schools across the embattled enclave, structures where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians displaced by fighting have sought refuge.
The Gaza-based Civil Defense Emergency Service reported rescuers recovering the bodies of 14 people in the rubble of the school building in Shati refugee camp just west of Gaza City along the Mediterranean coast. The school had been operated by the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency known as UNRWA.
Now, shortly after the strike, the Israeli army ordered the evacuation of Shati camp among other neighborhoods west of Gaza City, spreading panic among Palestinians who in recent days had sought refuge in those areas from Israel's renewed offensive against Hamas militants further north.
Since the year-long Israel-Hamas war began, schools in Gaza have been closed and served as shelters for Palestinians fleeing the fighting. Israel's parliament passed a law early Thursday that would allow it to deport family members of Palestinian attackers, including the country's own citizens, to the war-ravaged Gaza Strip or other locations.
The law, which was championed by members of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party and his far-right allies, passed with a 61-41 vote.
Legal experts said that any attempt to implement it would likely lead to it being struck down by Israeli courts. It would apply to Palestinian citizens of Israel and residents of annexed East Jerusalem who knew about their family members' attacks beforehand or who expressed support or identification with the act of terrorism.
نحن نرى هذا التشريع الجديد في سياق قائمة طويلة من الإجراءات والقرارات والتشريعات الصادرة عن الكنيسة، الصادرة عن الحكومة، عن الجيش الإسرائيلي، عن الشرطة الإسرائيلية، كلها يعني في خدمة مشروع إحلالي تفريغي، في مشروع ترانسفير شامل وواسع ضد الشعب الفلسطيني.
It is against Article 49 of the Geneva Convention, which bans the Israeli government or occupying power to deport or forcibly displaced civilians, Palestinian civilians, whether they are within the occupied territory or to any place outside of the occupied territory. So it is a form of collective punishment, and at the same time, it is a form of forcible displacement that is prohibited under the 4th Geneva Convention.
Other than this law, there is a lot of shipment also that is happening in Israel government, and that is one of which is the Minister Yoav Gallant. He has been recently fired by the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as he had said and warned the Prime Minister that this war is very costly for Israel, and also continues his military in Gaza. As he quote, "I don't know if it's possible to influence him," and what by him he meant Netanyahu, into ceasefire. "I tried and failed. I was was isolated in the cabinet, and both the head of the Shin Bet, the chief of staff, and the head of Mossad agreed with me on the necessity of reaching a deal, because at the beginning of July, Hamas agreed to prisoner swap deal, and the conditions have been favorable since then. But until now, we've been in disagreement about whether it is ripe or not. I believe and still believe that we should be prepared to make a prisoner exchange deal and withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor. So again, you know, this is one of the highest, most prominent role, you know, in their governance. And it seems that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is not listening to anyone. And if ceasefire was the deal, I think there's nothing that is close to that from the Prime Minister.
So a long shot.
Yes, folks, and more on that later as we have more updates from the region, as Lebanon's army said that Thursday that an Israeli drone strike hit a car at an army checkpoint in the southern port city of Sidon, killing 3 people and wounding 7 others, including UN peacekeepers.
The army said the 7 wounded were 3 Lebanese soldiers and 4 Malaysian UN peacekeepers who happened to be driving through the area at the time of the airstrike.
Earlier in the day, state-run national news agency said one of the wounded was taken to the hospital while the peacekeepers were treated for minor injuries at the scene of the attack at the northern entrance of Sidon, Lebanon's 3rd largest city.
There was no immediate information on the identities of those who died. A spokesperson for the UN peacekeeping force known as UNIFIL did not respond to messages sent by the Associated Press.
We now shift our focus to headlines from Indonesia, where the fate of the recently arrived Rohingya asylum seekers remains unclear, even after officials took them to Banda Aceh yesterday.
A group of some 150 asylum seekers arrived in Banda Aceh in the morning after a 10-hour trip from South Aceh.
However, they were not allowed to disembark upon arriving. No directives have been issued by the government to respond to the arrivals so far.
Kita sekarang ini dari kota Banda Aceh menunggu informasi dari Bapak Bidi Gubernur. Apa langkah-langkah yang harus kita ambil. Baik, jadi kami juga mendapat informasi tadi pagi. Ya, tadi pagi kita mendapat informasi jam 7 lewat tadi ada pergeseran daripada pengungsi Rohingya. Sampainya di Banjeh lebih kurang pukul 08.30, pukul setengah 9 sampai di Banda Aceh dan bersandar di depan daripada kantor Menkumham. Kalau tujuannya, kami juga istilahnya tidak mengetahui persis, namun kami menunggu informasi lebih lanjut dari pimpinan. Kalau jumlah pengungsi yang sudah kami datakan tadi lebih kurang 152 orang.
Meanwhile, the 2024 National Coordination Meeting on Regional Governance has capped off in Sentul Bogor Regency yesterday, with top officials, including ministers and regional leaders, had attend.
President Prabowo Subianto opened the meeting and spoke about his key priority programs going forward.
Sentul International Convention Center in Bogor, West Java hosted the nation's top officials on Thursday morning as they attended the 2024 National Coordination Meeting on Regional Governance. The event saw regional leaders, ministers, lawmakers, as well as the police and military leadership discussing priority programs under the new administration. President Prabowo Subianto provided the opening remarks, emphasizing the significance and strategic opportunity presented by having the opportunity to speak to all the nation's key decision makers at once.
Sangat menghargai langkah ini karena ini bisa dikatakan adalah kesempatan pertama saya untuk bicara dengan seluruh pengambil keputusan di Republik kita. Saya kira ini adalah suatu momen yang sangat bermanfaat, sangat strategis.
There were 3 panels in the meeting. The first was focused on the Asta Cita, or the 8 targets the president has set. Meanwhile, the second discussed the government's flagship programs, including the free meal plan, public housing, energy and food security, as well as investment strengthening. And the final panel discussed steps to ensure successful regional elections. In his remarks, Home Minister Tito Karnavian noted that the regional budget has significant influence over the success of the entire nation.
APBD yang ada di daerah itulah lebih kurang 1.200 triliun. Lebih kurang 919 triliun adalah transfer keuangan dari Kementerian Keuangan, dari pusat ke daerah, dan APBD lebih kurang 300-an triliun. Jadi 1.200 triliun, dinamika yang ada di daerah sangat menentukan keberhasilan secara nasional.
And in his closing speech, Vice President Gibran Rakabuming Raka underlined the importance of teamwork in executing the government's priority programs.
Saya ingin mempertegas pentingnya sinergi antara pemerintah pusat dan pemerintah daerah. Bapak Ibu yang ada di depan saya ini adalah orang-orang terpilih untuk mengelola negara sebesar Indonesia. Ini kita perlu kerjasama tim.
The meeting has been described as particularly crucial as the upcoming regional elections are expected to bring a shift in regional political landscapes. Arya Sidarta, Siriski, Kasya Fiandri, and Andre Saputra for See Today.
Furthermore, here's what Health Minister Budi Gunadi Sadikin had to say on health cooperations with China, the United States, and the United Kingdom.
Kalau mau jalan ke luar negeri, jadi dia tanya isu-isu kesehatan apa yang kira-kira terkait dengan Cina, dengan Amerika, dan juga dengan Inggris. Nah, kita bilang bahwa dengan Cina memang kita sudah ada beberapa agreement, mungkin ada beberapa pemikiran kerjasama lanjutan lah di zamannya beliau. Di Amerika juga kita kan sekarang sedang menyelesaikan MOU kesehatan perpanjangan antara Amerika dan Indonesia. Nah ini sekarang memang prosesnya ada di pihak Amerika. Jadi kalau misalnya datang ke sana nanti bisa ditindaklanjuti. Kemudian yang Inggris kan duta besarnya sempat hadir ke saya juga. Beliau juga bilang kalau datang bisa nggak ada satu kerjasama yang bisa ditandatangani bersama. Nah itu tadi dibicarakan sama beliau dan rangka persiapan beliau jalan. Itu sih sama obrolan.
Negara yang ikut mendampingi Pak Presiden nggak sih?
Kalau saya sebenarnya saya kan banyak tugas yang mesti beresin anggarannya di sini. Jadi saya bilang mungkin bisa nanti Pak Menlu aja yang nanti bawa.
And also adding on to this, the Vice President of the Republic of Indonesia, he was also making a remark that teamwork is very essential, especially in this new governance. As I quote, he said, "He must be united. We must be united with no more sectoral egos or egos. Regional leaders must cooperate with neighboring regions and cities." And once again, he also said that you are elected as officials entrusted to manage a country as huge as Indonesia. And also, Vice President Gibran also mentioned that for economic growth, West Papua is remarkable, particularly to the liquefied natural gas exports. And also he mentions and highlighted the Central Sulawesi strong economic growth from nickel production and Maluku's economic gains from agriculture and trade. And he ends it by saying that we all need to work hard right here in Indonesia.
That's true. I think it goes for everyone.
Yes.
All right, folks, so right now we are up for our first short break, and we have more news from around Indonesia when we come back, only on the C Morning Show.
Hello, you're watching C3 Updates with me, Indra Marpal.
The latest from Indonesia and the world.
Over 200,000 Palestinians working without jobs.
Presented in an accurate,
expected to reach 4.95 meters.
Timely and up-to-date manner.
Democrat Tim Walz and Republican J.D. Vance went after each other's running mates on Tuesday.
Only on C3 Updates every Monday to Friday at 2 and 4 p.m.
Of happiness. It is not something that is sought, but they create it themselves with the simplicity and luxury of the nature that they love.
By watching this show, you don't just see beauty of tourism, but you can also realize that we live side by side with other creators. See you on other episode only on the Travel Note.
Only on the Travel Note.
Because life is tough.
Jadi udah kita